Good morning, MuraCon attendees, family and friends. I'm Steve. Welcome back for day 2. We have several great sessions going on today. For those, I talked to a couple people today that there may be a little confusion. Yesterday was the only day that there was a digital experiences track up in the other room, okay? Today, there's a mix of all kinds of different sessions. There are some developer-centric sessions and so forth in both rooms. Okay, both here and up in the Tofanelli room, all right? So I want to point that out. Also, I would like to thank, first of all, our sponsors. So our bronze sponsors, Acton, Akunu, and Marketing Interactions. Our gold sponsors here, Adobe, thank you very much. And our platinum sponsors, OpenCFML Foundation, of course, Blue River, and Slatwall Commerce. Thank you very much. Thanks. And of course, we can't have a conference without attendees, but we're not going to have attendees without speakers. Yes, thank you. I did not hear anybody say it, but anyway. So if you were a speaker here, could you please stand up for just a moment? Don't be shy, please. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you all the speakers. Now, the reason I'm asking you to do this is because I know some of you guys are going to bolt at some point during the day, and I want to at least recognize our sponsors and speakers, as well as you. Thank you very much for being here. How many of you are not developers? Okay, so I'd just like to get an idea. How many of you are not running on Mura 7? Okay, and when I say running, I mean like your actual production environment, okay? So I'm just curious again. All right. And those of you that haven't, are not running on it, have you not really had a chance to play with it, or you can talk? Yes?
I'm waiting for this.
You're waiting for this.
We need a plan.
You need a plan. Oh, you want to know how to migrate. Okay, good.
Complicated site.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay. We're here. So these are great questions, John. Thank you, John, for asking about, you're kind of concerned about migration of a complicated site. We have the entire Blue River team here, okay? So throughout the day, feel free to stop by the table or just grab one of us, and we can sit down and chat about a few things with you, all right? And come up with a plan to help you execute those types of wishes, if you will, make them come true. And especially because you're going to see some things about Mura 7 that you are going to make you a little jealous because you're still on 5, or maybe 6.2, 6.1, maybe, or on 5. Okay. Anybody still on 5, just out of curiosity? Are you serious? Thank you for being here. You're really going to want to upgrade. Okay, so what I'm going to show you, something we've never done here at any MuraCon, is really just show you how to do a quick install of Mura. And there's been some tooling that's come out that is very exciting for our entire development community. So I apologize to those of you that are not developers, but those of you that aren't, you're going to see something kind of cool and go, but Steve showed me at the conference how easy it is to get going with this, okay? So I want to show you something. So for one, for those of you that don't know, our repository for all of our code base is there for the general public to look at and download. You don't just have to go through our website and click download, just FYI. Because I'm saying that because most of you in the room here are developers, right? And so as developers, you can fork our repository, and if you run into a bug, submit a bug fix. It's an open source project. That's how these things work. We'll review it. If you have an idea or suggestion for something to help make Mura better, we're going to have Matt Levine, our CTO, come up and talk a little bit. But we are refining our roadmap, and we would definitely love to look at anything that you have ideas for, or that you've maybe created and done with Mura that you want us to possibly consider integrating. Let us know. We'd love to take a look at it and see if that's something that we can entertain at some point in the future, okay? However, anybody who used Homebrew, not the beer, but the actual software? Okay, a few of you. So I'm going to have a list of resources here at the end. I'll give you some, and we're going to have all this stuff recorded, obviously, and we're going to have some links out there on our website and so forth to these slides and that sort of thing. But Homebrew is just essentially a package manager for Macs, okay, Mac OS systems. And the vast majority of us in this room, I've noticed, are on Macs, but yet at the same time, I'm not a Windows hater, by the way, so I don't want that to come off in that way. But this is specifically for Mac. There are toolings out there that are very similar to this for Windows. But so if you do have Homebrew, it says one of the first things you're going to need is what? A database, right? Because Mura does need a database in the back end. Well, with Brew, you can simply just go into your command line and type in brew install MariaDB, or if you prefer MySQL over Maria, which is pretty much where it's gone anyway, it's over to Maria. But you can say brew install MySQL, or you could simply just go download the database that you want to use, whether it's SQL Server, Postgres, Oracle, those sort of things too, okay? If you want a GUI, you're obviously going to have to download something like SQL Pro, MySQL Workbench, or whatever you're going to use to interface with your database if you're not comfortable with the command line. So that's something that you're going to definitely have to keep in mind. So the first thing you're going to need to do is create an empty database. All right? So for example, something like DB Mura CMS or something like that. So what I'm going to do is, and you guys are probably going, oh my gosh, he's going to do live coding. Yes, I am. So I'm going to go into, for example, MySQL Workbench and just create a little database called DB Mura Test. Okay? And of course, I need to give it some type of collation. Apply. Apply. Whew. All right, I'm going to take a 15-minute break because that's how long it took, anyway. So that's what you do at your desk, right? You create a database, take a 15-minute break. All right, so what are you going to do next? So after you do that, then you want to probably sign some or create a web-specific DB user. I'm putting this in the slides because in your environment, I highly recommend doing something like this. In my local environment, I have it all set up ahead of time. So like usually some type of like a web-specific database user or something, or maybe a Mura-specific one. So that way you can control the rights of that user account as they access your database system, okay? Instead of trying to manage it through your Adobe Cold Fusion administrator or your Lucid admin area and trying to select and on all the different rights and so forth, okay, for that specific user. And then, so that's the database part. So you got the database up and running, right? Very easy. Then there's this new tool that's come out from our friends over at Orta Solutions called CommandBox, CLI. It's a command line interface. That's what the CLI stands for. But what CommandBox does is it works on Mac, Windows, and Linux. All right, so it is cross-platform friendly, okay? And it gives us some really cool native tools that we can use, as you'll see, to do some things with Cold Fusion, all right? So once you install CommandBox, and it's as simple as going into, if you have that Homebrew package that I talked about, that package manager for Mac, it's simply brew install CommandBox, all right? Or you can simply go out to that CommandBox website that I had here and download it. They have all the different platforms available for you to download, okay? So it's just, if you want it, just Google CommandBox and it should come up, all right? CommandBox CLI. And then, now, again, for those of you that are in the command line world, MKDIR means make directory, all right? So what you would do is just go to your desktop if you wanted to. In fact, that's what I'll do just because, that's what some of you guys do. So I might go to my desktop, and I'm just going to create a new folder, and I'll just call this Mura Test, all right? So that's essentially what MKDIR would do, all right? So once I do that, what do you think I'm going to have to do? Well, I'm going to have to change directory or somehow get into there. So eventually you are going to have to use, because it's a command line interface, if you're using what I'm using here for CommandBox, you're going to actually have to eventually use that little terminal window that some of you guys don't like to use, but I'm giving you all the commands, so hopefully it's very easy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually go into my Mura Test directory, and there I am. Very easy. And now, here's the secret sauce. Box install Mura CMS. So I'm going to go do that. And you're going to say, what? So box install Mura CMS. And I know that's really small, so I'm going to try zooming in a little bit. So box install Mura CMS. And once I hit this, you'll see, hopefully our internet connection is pretty decent here. And so it's going through, and it's contacting the various repositories and so forth. Oh my gosh, look at that, it's already installed. Wow, is that faster than going out to the website and downloading it and everything else and then unzipping it and then putting it into a directory and all that? I believe so. So that really didn't take any time. So box install Mura CMS. And then what you can do is you can actually pick with this cold box or command box feature here is you can actually say box start. You could just say box start, or you could actually say box start CF engine equals, and you can actually specify what engine you want to run on. For example, I could say box start CF engine equals Adobe at 2016 or Adobe at 10. Okay, so or oh, by the way, for those of you that do use Adobe Cold Fusion, as it installs and you go to the Cold Fusion administrator, the password, because I could not find this anywhere, but I somehow magically figured it out, is command box. So your administrator password is command box to get into the Adobe Cold Fusion administrator initially. You can go and change that, obviously. Or, for example, you could say box start CF engine equals Lucy at 5.1 or something like that if you prefer a different CFML engine, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and go do that real quick right now. So I'm going to say box start CF engine equals, and I'll just do this. And so it's contacting ForgeBox, as it says here, and I know you can't read it because it's very tiny scripts there, but essentially, and it's kind of washed out on my screen. Whoa, I don't know what I just did there. But, oh, and then once it's done, by the way, so I don't know if you see this here, but once it's done, once it's done running the script, it actually launches the browser for you, takes you to the install screen with the URL and a port and everything else all set up and ready to go. Clapping's good. Yeah, woo! That was pretty easy, right? All right, so now here I've got my install up and running, but the only thing is I don't have the data source connected yet, right? Because right here it's saying what database do you want to use. So I have to go into my administrator area. So if you're on Adobe, it would be your CFIDE/administrator, okay? Or if you're on Lucy, it's going to be Lucy and then admin, all right? Or admin.cfm, it takes you right to it. And then what I can do is I just go ahead and put in my password, and it looks like it's already there, so I'm going to delete this real quick. All right, so now I can go in and type in my little data source, all right? So I'm going to say a DSN Mura test, for example. And I pick my driver, click create, and then I just fill this out as I normally would. All right, so for example, I'm going to make sure that I'm selected on the right database. So in this case, it was that, what is that database that I created? DB Mura test, right? So I'm going to pass that in. If I have a user account set up for it, I'm going to go ahead and use that. If I have a password, I'm going to enter that as well. And here's a little kicker too that I like to point out is I always like to go ahead and make sure that we're going to use that clob and blob. I just enable those because sometimes as a developer, I do use those in my applications, okay? And then as I mentioned before, the allowed operations, those are things you probably want to control from your database administrator side, all right? So based on the user that you're going to assign to this account. Once you've done that, you click create and you're all set. You should get this little OK that shows up over here where it says check, all right? So now I've got the data source created, right? And my data source name is DSN Mura test in this case. All right, so now I'm going to go right back to my URL, and then my install screen comes back up, and I can fill all this out. I'll just go ahead and put in my SQL, and I'll just fill in my data source name, so DSN Mura test. And because I've entered in the username or password and that sort of thing through the administrator, I don't need to enter all that here. So I'll just click next. And if I wanted to change the superadmin and superadmin username and superadmin password, which I highly recommend on your installs, okay? I'd be very disappointed if I went to one of your websites and I was able to log in to your Mura instance as admin, the secretive password that we use. So in this case, I'll just leave it there because it's a demo. And I'll go ahead and put in my email address, click next. And then I have a options screen that asks me, do I want to have the index in the index.cfm and the site ID in the URL. So right now I have it disabled, so I don't want the site ID, but I'll keep the index.cfm up in the URL. If you want to turn that off, please be aware that you're going to have to edit, if you're running IIS or Apache, depending on that, you're going to have to either update your web config or you're going to have to do an htaccess file to do some rewrites to be able to, for that setting to actually work. okay, to remove the index.cfm. So that's not something that Mura has to do for you. It's something your development team would have to do for you. So once I've done that, my installation is complete. All I need to do is click log in. And what it does is it's going to now go to that, use that data source, create those database tables, all right, all under the hood, all magically for me. And then when it's done, it'll say, hang on, it's coming. Anyway, the login screen will actually come up. So it takes just a moment. This is the moment where you can kind of talk amongst yourselves until I interrupt you again. So, you guys have fun last night? All right, so there we go. There's my username, password, and now I click login. Voila! And look at that. Within 10 minutes, I was up and running. Pretty cool, right? Yeah, that's good. And just in case you got, oh my gosh, he went too fast, I have no idea what in the heck he just did. They're in the slides. I did screenshots of everything I did. Cool? All right, you're welcome. So, and I just went ahead and did that demo for you, okay? So, the next thing I want to talk about is, for those of you that haven't had a chance really to play around with the Mura 7 UI and so forth, is just kind of really roughly go through a few things for you so I can give you a good overview of that. But first of all, I do want to let you know that the documentation is underway. Most of the Content Manager Guide is ready to go. There's some sections that are still being fleshed out, but there's quite a bit of information out there. It has, for those of you that have looked at documentation in the past, it's a complete rewrite. So it's actually at docs.getmura.com, and if you go to that URL, you're going to see the actual Mura 6 docs, but you'll see a link right here at the top that says Mura 7 docs, okay? So you can go ahead and click on that, and it takes you right to what we have so far anyway for the Mura 7 documentation, okay? And so as you can see here for the Content Manager's Guide, this is, again, complete rewrite, but there's several sections out here that go through step by step on almost every single feature, and there's a lot of stuff that's documented in here now that was never documented before in our prior versions, okay? So we're working really hard on trying to keep that up to date for you. Probably one of the most common questions I get from people that are migrating, okay, is what happened to galleries? All right, so we had this content type called gallery that all of a sudden went away, right? For some people, you know, they're like, hey, it's no longer there. How do I edit my galleries? So I thought I would go ahead and take a moment to show you galleries, all right? So ultimately, when you think of a gallery, for those of you that have been using Mura for a little while, what is a gallery anyway? I mean, when you really think about it, at the end of the day, it's just a content collection, right? All right, it's no different than any folder that we create of content, okay? So it's like a folder of images. In fact, for those of you that have come through my training, I've said that to you explicitly. What is a gallery? It's just a folder of images. So in this case here, I'm going to go ahead and quickly deploy a site bundle. So give me just one moment. Again, I love doing live coding stuff. So let me go grab the bundle. Actually, let's do this instead. Let's go back. Just one moment. I'm going to go into another install, CD projects. Wait a minute. CD into projects, CD into Mura CMS, CD into Mura CMS, box, start, Lucy, server, Lucy 5. So just one moment here. Stop server. Oh, by the way, when you're running it under box, you'll see that you get these like nice little icons here at the very top of your Chrome area, if you will, where you can actually control whether or not you want to stop the server, open a browser, or actually go to the admin areas of like the web admin or the server admin. So pretty cool stuff there. So LSLs, all right, so box start server losing, okay, so boom. Good, there we go. All right. And there we go. All right. So, for example, here under our About, we do have a Mura Bootstrap 3 bundle out on our GitHub projects. So under github.com/Blue River, you can find all kinds of really cool goodies out there. And one of those just happens to be the Mura Bootstrap 3 bundle. There's the Bootstrap 3 bundle. So what you would do is you would download this, unzip it, and then you can actually use this little bundle. And that's all I'm using here. So you can, for example purposes, okay? So here I've got a bundle that's been deployed, the Mura Bootstrap 3 bundle, and this is actually, it says photo gallery. I'm not logged in, so let me go ahead and log in real quick here. Admin, there we go. And now, just to show you, if I go back to my back-end view, you'll see that this is just a folder. Okay, this is just a content item now, it's a folder, and for those of you that had a photo gallery, you're like, okay, what happened? So I go in here and I click my little drop down, and I wanted to be able to have like, where's gallery? And so the point is now it's just a folder. And what happens now is when you're on the front end and you click on inline edit, what happens is you have to go to the folder itself. Okay, so here, and when I click on this, and you're gonna see some really cool stuff. This is how any folder works. In fact, I'll show this to you on another folder, but ultimately what you have here is you have the option to change how you want this to lay this out. Do you want this to be a list? Do you want this to be a grid? Do you want this to be some kind of custom thing that you've created? Okay? Do you want this to be, and then also this is where you can create your own custom actual layouts for your specific site as well. So I'm just gonna go back to grid. And then you can even change. Do you want this to be a 2-column, 1-column, those sort of things? And so I can even say, for example, maybe I want to make this 2-column and I want to use a large image size. So you have a full-on control over this. This is really cool, right? And then down here, this is where the main difference is. You can actually just say, view images as gallery. Is that true or false? And so I could say, for example, true. And that's exactly what it's set to. Now what happens is when it's set to true and I click on an image, it opens up in that, well, because I'm logged in right now in inline edit mode, okay, it thinks I want to edit the image, all right? If I'm not logged in and I'm not in the inline edit mode, it will just open up like this as a little light box, if you will, okay? So what I can do now though is if I say close this and I say view images as gallery false, when I click the image, because I'm still logged in, let's say I publish this. And now when I click on it, it thinks I want to use this as a content item and take me to a detail page. And this is probably what some of you have tried to figure this out and they just could not figure this out. But now folders are so easy to modify. You can make these galleries. I can say I only want to list two items per page and pagination kicks in. So this whole feature here, when I do this, any other folder operates the same way. For example, here's my news, all right? If I go ahead and do my inline edit, select my folder, you can see here that I can change the layout to grid, and it looks very similar to my photo gallery, but it's just outputting what? My content release date, the title, the summary, as well as the credits, right? And so you can see here, here's my image, date, title, summary. Let's say that I don't want any of that stuff, so I can get rid of the summary, for example, click update, and the summary is gone. I can do the same thing. And then also I can rearrange these just by clicking and dragging. Maybe I want the title to be above the date, so I click and grab the title and drag it above the date. So I can even make these medium images. I can change and make these whatever custom image size I want. What do you guys think? This is nice, right? Yeah, it's very easy. You can even change your sorting, whatever field you want to sort this content by, as well as the sort direction. Okay, so this works on any folder, all right? And I'd like to point that out because this is some question that we get, I've seen come up in our Google group, okay, our developer Google group. So some of you I know are out there on that, and this is a question that does come up. So now you guys can also go back in there and answer it and maybe point them to this video when it's out there for you. Yeah?
Can you still display the title and summary when you're using like that?
Yeah.
Those pictures for captions and so forth?
Exactly. So the question was, can you display the title in summary even when I'm on like a photo gallery? And the answer is absolutely. That's exactly my point. So if I click on my image here, okay, right now the only thing that's being selected here, my selected field, is image, right? So all I have to do is click this little edit button, all right, and there's all that information. So if I go ahead and click and grab that title and click update, look at that, the title comes in. Now I don't have sexy titles going on here, but these are just, because these are the image names themselves, but you can go ahead and update that very easily, okay? So this is something that actually, and I'm glad you brought that up because this is actually something you couldn't do in 6.2 with photo galleries anyway, right? So that's my point, is you can make these however you want. And I'm not sure if we have a session in this actual, in the schedule this time around, but maybe at some point we'll do a webinar on it to do custom layouts and so forth. So we have Evan is here, and he's going to be doing a session later on you said Webpack? Oh, that's later at the end of the day, right? So he's going to start showing some cool stuff off there, okay? So take a look, and what I'm talking about is actually being able to create some custom layouts and so forth, okay? So using this type of, so you can create like a custom layout for your photo gallery or your folder or what have you, and essentially collections in general is what I'm referring to. The galleries won't be affected right away, but when you go to edit it, it will automatically. So, I'm sorry. I like to restate the question. The question was essentially that if you upgrade from 6.2 or 6.1 or 6.0 or whatever, and you go to 7, will your photo galleries automatically be converted into a folder layout and that sort of thing? The straight up answer is no. It's not going to affect anything. It should still display just like it did before. It's just that if you go to edit that gallery, okay, that's when it will automatically switch to folder with the new layout options and so forth. So some of you may see like an initial like, hey, what happened? And so that, don't freak out, it's all good. As you saw, it's very easy to go in there and fine tune it again. In fact, you're going to see you've got so much more power and control over it now than what you had before. Okay, thanks. All right, so speaking of which, another big change was our components. And I'm also just going to go ahead and forward one more, and forms. So our components and forms have gone through some changes, all right? So, and I'm going to go ahead and just show you a few things there that's important for you to know. So I don't know if you noticed this, but first of all, here in the back-end administration area, when you come in, if I go to my content area here, okay, and by the way, you can toggle the visibility of this little toolbar just by clicking on that little icon that we refer to as the hamburger. I don't know if you guys have any other name you call it, but I've heard it called the hamburger. So if you click the hamburger, it just kind of stays open for you if you want. If you click it again, it'll go away. But I don't know if you noticed, I'm sitting here looking at this, and we used to call this architectural view, and it was a mouthful, so we just call it tree view now. Makes more sense. And then we still have tree view and list view, all right? So if you're in the tree view, you'll see all of our content structured as it was before in the architectural view in the prior versions. However, there's some new buttons in here. Because when you think about it, what is a component? Components are just content, right? So, and what are forms? Just more content. So we have site content, we have component content, and forms content. And the best part about this is, and this is something that you could not do before. Yes, you could like restrict components, but you had to go individually on each one to set the permissions on it. Now what you can do is you can actually create folders of components. So for example, maybe I have a marketing area, okay, and I can put all of my marketing components together. And the same thing goes for forms. I can collect and put my marketing forms and so forth all together. Or my IT forms, or my HR forms, and all those things. And then what's really cool about this is the best part, I can go to permissions for each one of those and set, if I had groups and so forth set up in here, I can specify what group or groups have access to those specific components based on the directory structure. That's so much better than what we had before. Agreed? Yeah, and you don't need, no, you don't, okay, well, if Ronnie wants to clap, you know, I'm all for it. So my point is that there's a much easier way to manage all of that. And in addition to that, I think what's important to understand too is now when you go to the different sections and so forth of your site, so for example, I've got some plugins and so forth that I've been, display objects that I was playing around with here. The point is that what you can do is you can do some really cool things now with components that you couldn't do before, right? And so in the past, we had, when you go to edit content, remember you go, for example, I'd go to the About page, and there was a tab called Layout and Objects. That's right, it used to be called Layout and Objects, and we just call it Layout now because there are no objects here to manage. The only thing you can manage is the inheritance rules. Meaning that, do you want the objects that have been assigned to content parents above it to flow through to your content item and its children? Or do you want to start a whole new cascade of content objects, right? So for most top-level sections, we usually start a new cascade, correct? So for example, I'm on the About page, and you can see here in the back end here, I've got the inheritance rules to start a new cascade. So anything I assign to these regions will flow through to its children, unless they explicitly go in and say, I don't want those either. I'm going to start a whole new cascade myself, right? So in this case, when I go ahead and do my inline edit again, that's how I get to this display objects panel. All right, I know some of you were in my session yesterday for Intro to Display Objects, for customizing those. So, you know, I don't have time to go through all of that, but just so you know, I have many more objects in here that you don't have in your install because, for example, you don't have one called Mura Contacts or Hello World or My Display Object because I created those. All right, so, but some of the basic ones, some of the most powerful ones are component. So I'm going to go ahead and drop that right on into wherever I want. And you can say right away a component that's not been configured just means that you need to configure it. So that's why we have this little configuration panel come up. And so now you pick what component do you want to have assigned to it. All right? So now I can go ahead and select, for example, my upcoming holidays component. Thanksgiving will be closed, enjoy your turkeys comes up, right? So, you know, it's kind of a dated component, but that's the last upcoming holiday before Christmas. So anyway, you can pick any other component that you want though, for example, Lipsum, or I could actually go ahead and where it says if I'm on select component, I can create a new component right from here, right from the front end of my site now. That's something you could not do before in prior versions as well. So if I just clicked on create new, it takes me to the create new component screen. Pretty powerful, right? Good, good, good. I'm glad you like that. Also, collections is a huge change too. This is as if you're on any folder. So everything I just went over about folders applies to collections now. So the difference being you actually pick a source for your collection of content, all right? So in this case, I could say I want my related content to this content item to appear here. And you can see, does that not look like a folder? Right? That's the same type of folder view. And so now as I scroll down, you'll see I still have all those same layouts. I can display that in a grid. I can display that as one column, two column, everything. All those cool things I just showed you for folders. All right? Same thing, image sizes. I can make those medium. All right? Okay. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this and show you one last thing on here, and that is forms. I can go ahead and bring forms in here. Drop that in, same thing. You have to select the form now. What form do you want to use? I'm going to use my marketing contact form, and when I select that, you'll see that I can go ahead and publish this, and now I've got my marketing contact form. Nice, right? It's right there. And look, wait, what is this? There's a next? Yes, in Mura 7, you can actually create multi-page forms. I don't have time to go through all of that with you. As I said before, anything we're talking about here, feel free to stop us and catch us anywhere we're at. I'm going to be hanging around, flying around. I'd be happy to show you how that works, okay? And maybe we'll even do a little webinar on that. So you can see there it's a little Lex, and I can submit then after the fact. So pretty cool stuff there. So galleries, components, forms, all that now you can manage right from the front end of your site. And I just went over the objects. Again, inline edit, there are no more layout and objects tab. It's just layout only. And I do want to point out, as I just showed you, how do I get to related content? Because there is no more related content display object. Related content is a collection. So I would like to point that out as well, because that's something that also that's kind of come up for some people that have been transitioning or migrating from Mura 6 versions on up to 7, is if you've been using the related content display object, that's no longer there. It's moved, if you will, and become much more powerful and better to use on the front end, okay? As I said, it's just a collection. Now, you can create your custom display objects, okay? And those are found, I'm just putting these on here because this is something I talked about yesterday, but for completeness, I like to have it out here. If you go under your custom display objects, you can put those under your site ID, includes themes, your theme name, and display objects to keep them together. I've got a very good webinar I did, I can't remember when, not too long ago anyway, out there on our website. So to talk about some really cool things that you can do with display objects, all the way up to and including building a super powerful application. In addition to that, something I haven't had time to talk about are your custom content types. Anybody using class extensions, like have custom content types in their sites? Of course, right? You know, you might have some need for whatever reason to collect additional data or information about something in particular. Maybe you want to have a whole section of your site on some books that you guys have within your organization, right? Or HR docs that have specific, numbering systems and those sort of things. So you can go ahead and create all those. But how do I customize the layout and so forth of that? Well, DSP body, all right, that's our little tag that we have on our layout templates that outputs the body area on your layout templates. We use these custom content types now as like a sub-template for content. And you can do that by simply going under your site ID, includes themes, and say, for example, we have a good example of their, under the Mura Bootstrap 3 content types area. And you'll see, I'm going to go ahead and just show you very quickly here, includes themes, Mura Bootstrap 3. And you'll see here there's a folder called content types. And all you have to do is you drop in a folder called whatever your content type is, page, folder, whatever, okay? And if you have a custom content type like page book, you would say page_book. And then in there, you can put your little like index.cfm and go to town. And what would be in there? Well, again, this controls whatever the body is. So you have full control now over how that body output would appear. And you can do all kinds of really fun stuff in that. And one thing I do want to point out is that when you do that, it also allows for that custom config xml.cfm file and your model directory and everything else. So when you have a custom content type, this is so powerful now, all right? You don't have to have one ginormous event handler, essentially, with all of your custom overrides and everything else. You can have it all nice and compact and right there all together. And this is what we feel, a much easier way for developers to be able to work with Mura and make it much more powerful than what they used to in the past. I do want to point out that the mailing list manager and email broadcaster have been deprecated. Okay, what does deprecated mean? It means we no longer support it, and probably in the next version, they're going to be gone altogether, okay? You don't see it if you install Mura, like Mura 7, but if you upgrade and you were using these things, they're still there, don't worry. But they are going away. There's just so many other options out there that are available, and these are two very low, rarely used elements of Mura that we've experienced anyway, and so we just choose not to support them. If somebody wants to sponsor a plugin or something like that, or write a plugin that does these things better, knock yourselves out. That's great. That's exactly what we hope people can do. All right. And the last thing I want to show you is, especially for the developers in the room, is unit tests. Yes, Mura does actually have unit tests, for those of you that were wondering. Now in Mura 7, in your settings INI, if you go and you set your test box equals true, and then you do an app reload, what will happen is you can go and as long as you've got test box installed, you can go to this URL, a requirements test box test runner, to get an output of all the different tests that Mura runs. And in addition to that, any entities and so forth that, for those of you that have been using Mura ORM, any entities and so forth that you've created, if you have any unit tests and so forth created on those, they will also appear in there as well. And if you don't have it installed, to bring this full circle, when I talked about the command box, you can just go to the root of your Mura site, run box install, and it will go ahead and pull down the required files, and then you'll be able to use that test box. Because some of you that try and run test box equals true app reload, it's not going to work because you actually need the test box files, okay? And you need our tests to actually see that. So you can just say box install, and then it will go ahead and pull that down. And for those of you that want to know more about test box, again from our friends over at Order Solutions, you can go ahead and learn some more information about test box out there, okay? And I don't have time for the actual demo to do that, but I am going to, because I want to open this up for a few questions. Any questions? This is like a great time for you to ask anything you want. Yes? Yeah, so okay, the question is, do I know anything about the Bitnami stack? Is Sean in the room? Okay, well, Matt, just out of curiosity, do you want to address?
They were just very, very, very behind. And I heard that.
Here, you know what? You're up next anyway, so. In fact, that's the next slide after that. Matt, you're next.
Hello. The last I heard was about a month ago. They were, we'll say, overwhelmed by their own efforts, Bitnami. So I think they were a little behind, and we heard that there was actual developers assigned within Bitnami to get that going, I think, within the last month. So it is moving forward. It's just slower than I think we all hoped it would have been, but we'll be patient, and hopefully not too long it'll show up.
So it's still, the point is, it's still out there. It's just that, you know, because we had a bunch of people, for those, anybody not familiar with Bitnami, Bitnami is a way to run essentially almost any kind of platform in the cloud very easily. And there was a voting period a while back, and Mura actually won the last one. So we were the last stack to win there because they would bundle it up for us, and then as he said, they got overwhelmed. So
the reason why they stopped doing it is because they were getting further behind and getting them ready to go, and we were the last one. So
I don't know if you know that or not. I mean, we were the last one to win. Yeah.
To win that contest system.
Yeah, they had a contest system. Yeah.
So.
Yeah. What other questions?
So if I'm running, or someone's going to migrate to, let's say, using Docker as like your kind of like running Docker container to run all the tests, how difficult would it be to migrate the test box tests that you already have into like a contained Docker environment?
Well, so the question is, if you're already running Mura in a Docker environment, how difficult would it be to migrate the tests over to the Docker instance? I don't think it'd be.
All it really needs to be able to do is ping localhost to a certain URL to run that. It should be very straightforward. Their Docker wouldn't present any problems with that at all.
What else? Any other questions? Again, we're going to be around. Feel free to hit us up. Matt, do you want to need a computer, or are you just going to chat?
I'm just going to do a quick little chat, I guess.
Okay, so Again, this is just a very informal thing. Matt Levine, CTO, Blue River. So I'll go ahead and pass. You want this, or you just want to use that?
I'll use this. This makes me feel like I'm going to be a DJ voice. Hello, hello. So I'm just going to be real brief, and if I can answer any questions that anyone would have. I just want to thank everyone for being here. I think you might notice there's a certain theme going on with the content of this year's conference, besides getting used to the new layout manager and the new UI. One thing I would want to point out is that the Mura's front end right now for Mura 7 runs, has the ability to run purely via the client and as a service. So we have one of the themes you'll see in the sessions will be JavaScript and certain JavaScript frameworks and dealing with JSON objects, being able to pull data remotely. And as we move forward, I would really encourage everyone here to not be afraid of JavaScript, not be afraid of installing Node. Node is your friend. And using Node doesn't mean you're abandoning anything. It means you're opening up your world to new possibilities. And what we're really moving forward and looking forward to with the Mura Core, and we have the Mura Experience Platform, which is another very closely related to, but not necessarily the same thing, is moving Mura to a tool that can serve as a content as a service within infrastructures. So the idea there is that you would be able to spin up a Mura in your organization, and Mura could provide content not just to your one website, having that traditional, website theme, render HTML, but actually be able to create your content, have that content available via the JSON API, a little API endpoint, having things like Ryan Watt's demonstration with the Mura, the view components, where the view components for Mura querying are available within your organization. So you have different sites that are running different things that they don't really know it doesn't really matter, but you're able to push the content that's managed within Mura to wherever that content needs to be consumed. So we made a lot of progress with this, with Mura 7, with the JSON API and the layout manager. We have examples of the layout manager running on remote sites without Mura. And just being consumed via the JSON API. We are in the process of refining our roadmap for the next version of Mura. We don't necessarily envision quite the game-changing shifts that happen between 6.2 and 7. We're really in a mode where we want to fill the gaps for our vision of making a easy to use, robust CMS that's easy to extend and easy to create, have that content to which it's created within that system be consumed by whatever system that needs to consume that content, whether it's your local. So I often refer to it as optionally headless. And a headless CMS is when you have you don't actually do your rendering, you just provide data to other systems to do the rendering. So within that, so we're very excited about getting our roadmap refined. Will probably be talking with select people in the community. If anyone has any real driving things they want to bring up with me during the rest of the day in the conference about what you'd like to see in it, I'd love to hear about it. I won't necessarily say I'm going to jump on it tomorrow, but really what the roadmap is it's always driven by the community and clients of Blue River and feedback from the community of what the pain points are and what our personal pain points are within our own agency. So please, we might make a little more formal way of requesting beyond GitHub, I guess, feature requests, but we'll have more information later as the process becomes more mature. But just wanted to let you know that we're very excited about the future. And anyone have any questions for me? No? You want Steve to come back up here? Or that?
I'll be the DJ.
Okay.
No, anyway. Thank you very much. Next session's starting in about 10 minutes. So feel free to take your breaks, go get something to drink, that sort of thing. And thank you very much. That's it.